Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where the stories are all about people getting what they deserve. And trust me, guys, in today's episode, a power-hungry, greedy boss refuses to let OP quit, and OP makes him regret it big time. Guys, I hope you enjoy the lineup of stories today. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, your crazy stories can be sent to this email right here. Okay, so this happened around 20 years ago. Our family owned 2 apartment buildings, 3 units each. We lived in 2 of them, rented out the other 4. There's nothing but these 3 flats lining both sides of the road for about a mile. Not all have parking. On the side streets are houses and very little street parking. We had more land than most of these units since it was also our home. So we had parking for around 16 cars. Everything was fine for literally decades. Then, all of a sudden, cars started appearing in our parking lot that were not our tenants. I blocked one in one day, went outside to see this a-hole drive through our bushes and across the yard to get out. I called the cops. There was nothing they could do, so I called a tow company and had them put up signs. We'd have to call them to get a car towed. The signs seemed to work. There were no more random cars. Until New Year's Eve one year. So I arrive home and every space is filled. There's even cars on the street blocking the other cars, and I'm beyond pissed. So I call the tow company and they can't do anything for a few hours because they're so busy. We're in the Chicago suburbs, it's below 0 out, and I have an idea. So I dig out the lawn sprinklers and hoses. I run one hose inside to the laundry room faucet and turn on the hot water. This way, the hose and sprinklers won't ice up. But the cars and ground sure did. 3 sprinklers moved every half hour or so for almost 5 hours. Every car, every square inch of the parking lot, the street by the cars were encased in ice. I also made it a point to spray water into the locks, between the window seals, glass, in the grills, and then put away the sprinklers and hoses and went to bed. So fast forward to 4 a.m. There's furious pounding on the doors, doorbells ringing non-stop. We just smiled and called the cops. We waited until they arrived and went outside. The cops were holding back their laughter. These people were told to park here by their friend who owned an apartment building several buildings away. The same idiot who drove over our bushes. I then point to the tow sign and told the people to move their cars or get towed. In our town, cops can ticket on private property with the owner's permission, so all cars were ticketed. They were also towed, since nobody could get inside their vehicle. I wish we had it on video. Guys, this revenge is both evil and hilarious. Like, imagine coming out to your car drunk after a New Year's Eve party, only to have your car encased in a thick sheet of ice. Like, oh my friggin' goodness. And the cherry on top was all the cars got ticketed and towed. Like, holy crap, guys. So yeah, the guy who told everybody to park there probably got a ton of hate after that. So this happened 12 years ago, and I'm still reaping my rewards. I used to work for a company that did 3-phase photography. It was family and children photography. There was no weddings or events or anything. Straight studio work that was in a portable setting. The sittings booked for 10 minutes, and we were supposed to shoot 30 to 50 a day. And yes, it's as wretched of a job as it sounds. It was fast, high energy, and at times, simply brutal. The company consisted of 3 types of people. So number 1, the pre-seller. They come in 2 to 3 weeks in advance and sell a special 10x13 portrait and book the appointment. Number 2, the photographer. That's me in this instant. I come in for about a week and take the pictures. 3, the salesperson. They return 2 weeks later with the special, along with the 6 other poses I take, and tries to sell you $400 worth of pictures. Now, I was very good at what I did. The company sales average was $100 per customer per 50 customers. The more you shoot, the lower your quality because you spend less time taking care of details, and details sell pictures. My average was $175-ish per 150 to 200 customers. I was making this company a lot of money, and they consistently treated me like crap. Oh, the stories. So their business model was to shoot as many sittings as you can, as fast as you can. To them, shooting 50 with a $100 average was better than shooting 35 with a $150 average, even though the profit margin was exactly the same. Now, I never agreed with that, and boss and I went round and round about it every week. They withheld raises because I didn't have enough sittings and took my bonuses because I wasn't meeting their quotas. So I figured out how to be fast, efficient, and damn good. So that's the background. Now the good stuff. Enter the jerk. Now, this jerk is a pre-seller who lied to the customer, lied to the stores, and would book appointments from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., even though the studio hours were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The guy told every lie in the book, and I think he even added a few of his own. You want to bring your dog? Of course you can. Family of 15, sure, bring 5 changes of clothes, and I'll even have her do your makeup. I don't even do my own makeup. He would also say things like come and get your picture taken and we would throw in a free toaster. And just to make it interesting, he would triple and quadruple book appointments, and when he ran out of those, he would sell open appointments and tell people to just come in anytime, and my photographer will work you in. Now, just writing that makes me mad, even after all these years. The biggest problem was he would waive the sitting fee or just not tell them, and I was obligated to collect that $8. Every time I didn't, it would come out of my check, and it was a frickin' nightmare. I refused to work behind the jerk for these and 1,000 other reasons. I told boss that if they ever put me behind jerk again, that I would quit, which is exactly what happened. They knew he had been working at the store I was assigned, and they lied about it. So with that, I immediately called my boss and told him that this was my last week and he needed to make arrangements to get photography equipment at the end of the shoot. Now, I should have walked out, but I was young and dumb. It was a 3-day shoot, and I shot 316 customers by myself. That's an insane amount of sittings, and nobody was happy. Every night, the store manager had to tell my customers to leave because the store was closed. People were lined up at 9 a.m. waiting for me. I took so much abuse that week. A customer even threw a shoe at me and another spit on my pizza, and that's when store security brought a chair over and stayed with me almost the entire time I was there. I honestly can't remember how many people were escorted out of the store because they acted a fool in my studio. It's been over a decade, and I still have nightmares about that week. But nobody came to get the equipment, so I start making phone calls and plotting. I call my boss and say, hey, what do you want me to do with your equipment? My boss says, you are gonna need it next week in Florida. To which I say, no, because I quit. Hearing that, my boss says, you didn't give me any notice, so I'm not accepting your resignation. You are not quitting. I am sending you to Florida next week, and you will go. I tell him, I'm an independent contractor, remember? You can't make me go to Florida. This is not complicated. I quit. Now, of course, the boss ignored everything I said, and he says, just go to Florida. I don't have time for this right now. You can quit in 3 weeks if you can hire a replacement. He then hangs up. Now I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to Florida. I then packed up the equipment and took it home with me. The camera was a brand new Canon T2i 550D, and those were pretty pricey back in 2010. I didn't really want to give it back, but it wasn't mine to keep. But I had an idea. Now, one thing about my boss is he was an absolute train wreck of a human. If he didn't want to do something, he wouldn't. If he could find someone else to do it, he would. So I decided to use his own worst traits against him, avoidance and procrastination. The next thing I did was take the company credit card and go to the nearest storage unit with climate control. I rented a unit and paid for the first month, but just one. I unloaded it all, down to the last halogen light bulb. I then took detailed pictures of everything and an inventory. I then locked the door and walked away. At this point, there was nothing I could do but wait and hope that my boss would continue to be the worthless wreck I knew him to be. Next, I called and reported the card stolen. Why? Because I knew if I didn't, that card would remain active and rent would be paid every month on time. And that just wasn't gonna work for me. I cut the card in half and sent it and the combination to the storage locker to my boss via FedEx, along with a hand-painted sign that said, I quit. I also sent an email to HR, telling them that I was terminating my contract and that my boss had the information on the equipment. This is probably the only sketchy thing I did. The person I emailed was out on medical leave, and I knew it. I could have sent that email to a dozen other people who worked there, but they might have paid attention to it. By the time she got back to the office, she had so many emails she couldn't begin to tackle them all. A month goes by, and the police knock on my door. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. The company had reported the equipment stolen and the police are there to investigate. I really thought I was going to jail. The cop that knocked on the door was fully expecting to take me away in handcuffs until I explained what was going on. I ended up taking copies of the emails to the police department as well as my copy of the contract with the storage unit. I also had the copy of the shipping label. Both my name and the company name were listed on the contract. I had to make an official statement and jump through some hoops. The company had placed a monetary value of $12,000 on the studio rig, so potentially I was in a lot of trouble. Except I covered my ass. The police told me that I was in the clear because the storage unit had their name on the contract, and also their credit card was used to pay for it, and that I had sent the combination and all the pertinent information to the company. At this point, I figured the gig is up because surely they're gonna come get this rig or send someone or something. But no, the boss is still worthless. 2 more months go by. I get a call from the storage facility that they're about to cut the lock and auction the contents. I just about peed my pants, I was so excited. I called my boss again. He dodges my calls and ignored the emails to please call me immediately. Now, I never stated what I wanted to talk to him about, and just like I was hoping he would, he ignored me. Okie dokie, I've done all that I can. And that's when this all started coming together. In the States, if a storage unit goes up for sale, the owner cannot purchase it at auction. I didn't know that, but where there's a will, there's a way. They sent letters and called 3 more times, and then the date was set. The unit went up for auction on my birthday. My neighbor went to the sale. He bought the unit for $125, and I almost died. And of course, we were in cahoots on this, but we had to make it look like we weren't. The camera mounts cost more than that, not to mention the lighting, props, and costumes, and of course, the camera. My neighbor then put an ad in the local newspaper for photography stuff, a $1,000 firm, but didn't list anything specific, and oops, put the wrong number in the ad. A week later, he wanted it out of his garage, so he sold me everything for $126. He has a bill of sale from the auction, and I have a bill of sale from him. It's now mine, and there's nothing the company can do about it, but they tried. I now have a fully functional photography studio, all the contacts I need to start my own business, and the skills to do it. I start calling all the stores I worked for the last 8 years and offered them a much better deal than what the company was giving them. I did my own pre-selling, my own photography, and my own sales, except I took it a step further. I bought a monitor and computer and let people preview their pictures and order the day of the shoot. They paid in full and I mailed the pictures directly to them. People loved it, no high-pressure sales, no tricks, and my customers were happy and so were my stores. About 6 months after my first independent shoot, I heard from the company. I got several nasty letters from them which I ignored. Word had gotten back to them that I was using their equipment and that I was working for someone else, and I just laughed at them. They thought so little of me that it never occurred to them that it was my business. I then got a nasty legal letter from a lawyer. It started with a cease and desist, rolled into me violating the non-competitors agreement, and ended with the return of their stolen property. They had apparently not told him all of the facts. I sent him copies of everything. I waited a few weeks for a response from him and heard nothing. I finally called to find out what was going on, but no one was available to take my call. How convenient. A few days later, I got a certified letter in the mail saying no other legal action will be forthcoming from this office. I would have been content to let it slide, but this whole thing ticked me off, and now I wanted blood. I made a real effort to really hurt them. Little by little, I built my business and my reputation. I didn't have to do any of the nasty tricks that the jerk did. Within a year, I had stores and schools calling me. I had more work than I could handle on my own, so I took on a second photographer and then a third. I actually hired 4 people out from under their noses. At the height of my business, I had 8 additional photographers and a full-time office assistant. I could have grown much larger, and in hindsight, I'm so glad I didn't. Digital photography was a huge boom to the industry, and then it backfired. I got in the market just as it exploded. So, the fallout. I ran the company completely out of 3 states. They lost all of their chain contracts to me, including the store where it all blew up. The jerk lost all of his stores and ended up working at a gas station. The boss ended up demoted because his district was dissolved when I sniped the contracts. The jerk actually tried to convince one of my photographers to hire him to do the pre-selling for her. By now, my name and my business name had a really good reputation. Boss left the company for good and used me as a personal reference. The guy was a good photographer, just a rotten manager. And I took great joy in telling the people who called me that I was legally not allowed to tell them what I thought of the man. The age of the cell phone camera pretty much destroyed traditional photography, and I closed my doors as a business in late 2017. The company I used to work at closed for good in 2016, and I would like to think that I had a hand in that. I'm still standing, and they're nothing but an empty building. I still have the original rig, but the camera's been replaced several times. I do senior pictures and the occasional venue shoot. Most of my photography is for restaurant menus now. Now, people ask me if that's boring, but I've never had a meatball scream, cry, or kick me, which is pretty much a daily occurrence when you work with kids. Now, this might not be as epic as some on here, but I beat them at their own game, and that still feels pretty damn good. Guys, I totally disagree with that. That was absolutely brilliant and a super satisfying revenge with a frickin' nuclear fallout. Like, OP pretty much single-handedly destroyed a well-established, super successful company. Should have just let OP quit is what I think. But hey, some people have to learn the lesson the hard way, right? So a while back, my friend was selling some stuff online, and amongst the items was a water heater. You know, those ones you see in every community hall and church kitchen. It was in working condition. He threw it online for $150 and got an email from a person who runs a landscaping business saying he'll give him $100 cash today. Done. 2 weeks later, he gets an email saying that it's not working. We're thinking, weird, so my friend offered to give the full refund or cover the repair cost if it's under $100. The guy instead sent an invoice for $400, saying the repairs had been done, and if my friend doesn't pay it in 48 hours, he'll send a debt collector after him. My friend paid it out of fear and emailed him the confirmation. The landscaping owner then emailed back saying, "This is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling second-hand electronics," followed by a "Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back," with a smile at the end of the email. A month later, my friend was in a bar and he overhears a girl talking about how her boss, who runs a landscaping firm, screwed over some dumbass selling a water heater. My friend then said, "Oh, damn, I gotta hear this. Do you mind if I join your table?" The girl said sure, and she told this story. She said her boss had bought a busted water heater from a secondhand store for $25 and a working one for $100, and then billed the seller for the repair for the busted one before he sold it for $300 to some community group. My friend then laughed and said, "Who did this so I don't hire that guy to fix up my yard?" Everybody laughs. The girl says the company's name, and lo and behold, it's on the email of the guy my friend sold the water heater to. He was the dumbass in the story. He told me he was pretty angry about it, but then COVID hit, so he had other stuff to worry about. 18 months later, he was browsing the website he originally sold the water heater on, and he saw a bunch of landscaping materials. Shovels, gardening stuff, wheelbarrows, lights for working at night, drills, nail guns, some construction materials, and a generator. Now, in my friend's location, apparently, if you're selling a generator, you have to have a warrant of fitness for it, proving that it works, that it's safe, there's no frayed wires, etc., etc. Most people ignore it, and he saw that this generator is being sold by the landscaping firm. The generator, he said, just by looking at it, that there was no way in hell it would have a warrant of fitness. Now, word of note, if a business fails to provide a warrant of fitness upon request for a generator after 2 weeks, when reported to official departments and enforced by the court, the punishment is a hefty fine, and the court often forces the seller to refund the affected party and pay any cost that they incurred. He then talked to his flatmates, who agreed that they would go 50-50 on the generator, but he would transfer the money. Now, my friend had never met the landscaping firm owner face-to-face when selling the water heater. And when he got there, it was clear that the owner, this grumpy-looking man, who enjoyed yelling at his employees, had emptied out his storage unit. The owner was very much as is, no refund. And the flatmates showed him the transfer confirmation, and they take the generator for $800. No warrant of fitness is provided. They then took it to a friend of theirs who's an electrician, and he agreed to check it and give an invoice for repairs, and to quote the friend, "It would be cheaper to buy a new generator, and to be honest, this generator shouldn't have been sold, it should have been scrapped." They also found that the main identifier number had been scratched off, but not a second number that's often recorded as well on the warrant of fitness for tracking purposes. So they got in contact with the seller, telling him the cost for the repair, which is around $5,000. He promptly tells them that he is not paying because he sold it as is, no refund. To which they then asked, "Have you got a warrant of fitness for the generator?" There was then silence for 2 days. They then followed up with another email asking for it. No response. They then ask again, and get an email from him saying that he'll take it back for $800. They said no, they want the warrant of fitness, and they get no response. They emailed him every day for 2 weeks. Nothing. So they printed out the original item listing that had been screenshotted and reported him to the website, and then the government. 4 months later, my friend's in court, and the guy went up to him. He tells him that he'll take back the generator for $800, and that my friend and his flatmate will be telling the judge that the seller refunded them, and they want it all dropped. The guy demanded them do that, and my friend said no. When they go into the courtroom, it's over with very quickly. The inspector the government sent out to inspect the generator said it's in poor condition, should never have been sold, was highly unsafe, and the seller had tried to get the generator a warrant of fitness in early 2021, but instead had been told that it was to be repaired or scrapped and that it was not to be sold. The judge then ordered the landscaping firm owner to refund the flatmate $800, pay the $5,000 for repairs to the generator, and was ordered to pay a $10,000 fine, which would be given directly to my friend's flatmate as the affected party. When they left the courtroom, the owner was furious and told them that under no uncertain terms was he paying them a penny more, and that he couldn't understand what he had done to deserve such treatment. To which my friend then said, "Remember the water heater?" He then gave him a very confused look. My friend then said, "Remember the water heater you bought for $100? Well, I do because I sold it to you, and I know you had a different one repaired and invoiced me for it." The guy's jaw was on the floor, and to hit it home, he said, "It's a bitch, isn't it, when what goes around comes around? Especially when it accumulated interest? You have 48 hours to pay, or a debt collector will be contacted. Remember, this is the price you sometimes have to pay when selling second-hand electronics. Have a great day. Don't let this hold you back though. The guy paid the $15,000 2 days later. My friend and the flatmate split the $10,000 50-50 as they agreed. The generator got repaired and they got a warrant of fitness for it before selling it for $1,000 with a newly replaced identifier number. They then went out for a wonderful dinner and a night out in town. In short, the old landscaping owner rips my friend off $400 and my friend makes him incur $15,000 in expenses. Guys, this is such a juicy, satisfying revenge. I love it when a sleazy person gets their just desserts, and I absolutely love how what the idiot said came back to bite him in the end. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /ProRevenge. Guys, if you enjoyed the super satisfying stories today, hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. A super duper entitled Karen decides that she can steal a dog, and then has the nerve to ask for a finder's fee. It exposes her and ruins her. Guys, check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.